Thank you and good morning. Great to be with you. And I am very pleased to have the opportunity to introduce my friend and colleague, Rich McKay, this morning. You know, Rich has been involved in the National Football League either as a team executive or a club general counsel for almost, well, a quarter of a century, 26 years, Rich.
I was 10.
You were 10 when you started, yes. But he's been part of the collegiate or professional football community his entire life. Many of you will remember his late father, the legendary John McKay, who was the head coach of the University of Southern California for a number of years. He led those Trojans to 4 national championships in 16 seasons. And in 1975, Coach McKay became the first head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Rich was born in Eugene, Oregon, but he grew up in Los Angeles and Tampa Bay. He earned his bachelor's degree in economics in 1981 from Princeton University and then graduated from Stetson's College of Law in 1984. He went to work for a prestigious law firm in Tampa. He worked there from 1986 to 1992, and during that time period, he served as general counsel for the Buccaneers. That led him to become eventually the general manager of the Buccaneers. When in Tampa, he played a pivotal role in the construction of the Raymond James Stadium. At the time, you know, the state-of-the-art open-air facility in Tampa. And after 12 years of serving with the Bucs, Rich accepted Arthur Blank's invitation to join our organization, the Atlanta Falcons, in 2004. And for the first 8 years, he served as the president of the Falcons. But last year, Arthur also gave him the title of CEO. Over and above his duties of running the day-to-day operations of the Falcons, Rich is heavily involved with Arthur and others as we develop our plans to build a new stadium in downtown Atlanta. You probably have heard or read about that. Rich's impact extends well beyond the Falcons, though. It's also been felt at the league level for many years. He's a valued member of several NFL committees charged with advancing the game and growing the NFL's business, and you're going to see some slides today that will attest to that. Importantly, he's been a member of the very powerful competition committee for 18 years, and just last year he became sole chairman of that committee. So if you have any complaints or concerns about the rules, Rich is the guy to talk to. When he's not focusing on football, he spends his time with his wife Taryn and their 2 boys, Hunter and John. It says that he enjoys long-distance running. I don't think Rich runs as much as he used to. It doesn't say anything about his golf game. He's quite a good golfer. It doesn't say anything about his bowling game either. I've played bowling. I've bowled with him, and I will tell you he's not a very good bowler. So, Rich McKay.
Nice to you. Okay, good morning. What I thought I would do today, since we're businessed up and we're all dressed up and so forth, is I'm going to give you just a little bit of NFL and about the brand and about our business and about what makes the NFL great. And then I really want to get into the idea of why. Why has the NFL been so successful? It's not just the game of football. There's a bunch of other reasons. Business reasons, I'll kind of go through those. And then we'll talk a little football. A little Q&A, anything you want to talk about, happy to talk about. I always, make sure I disclaim at the front end that, 50% of what I may say in response to your question could be the truth or could not be the truth. So I just don't want you to get overly excited in what I say, but I will try to answer any and all questions you have. David brought up the stadium. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff we're working on and happy to talk about. I thought the interesting thing was, because I was coming to a University of Georgia event, was the Metro section today, which had the article about the Georgia guys that saved the life of the person in the shark accident. So I thought I would share that with you. And that basically, as you may have read, in Destin, the Pope, had been traveling down there and was in the Pope Mobile and saw a guy stuck in a shark's mouth, 25-foot shark, wearing a Gator jersey. Didn't look good. Obviously, the guy was on the verge of death. 3 Bulldog men came up in a boat, harpooned the shark, thankfully got the young man out. He got to shore. They saved his life, obviously. They killed the shark, put the shark on the boat. The Pope immediately waved him over. They came over and said, yes, sir. And he said, hey, I just want to say you have my blessing. You saved this man's life. You're unbelievable what you did. I'd always heard that the Gators and the Bulldogs didn't like each other. That's clearly not the case. And I just want you to know that I bless you, all three, for the rest of your lives. And drives off in his little mobile. And the one Bulldog guy, maybe not the sharpest tack, turned to the other two and said, who was that? And the guy said, well, that's the Pope. And he is omnipresent. He knows everything. There's nothing he does not know. He is directly tied to God. He knows exactly what he's thinking. He knows everything. He just blessed us. We're good for life. And the guy looked and said, you know what, though? He's not very smart. He said, what do you mean he's not very smart? He said, well, doesn't he understand how gator bait works for sharks? So I thought that was a good gator story and how the Bulldogs treat the Gators. So this morning, starting on business, let's go to what I like to show is where the NFL is today. I'm going to show you a bunch of slides. Don't get caught up in any of them. And I have a law against reading slides. So I'm not going to sit here, put a slide up and read every point to you, because whenever I sit in the audience and somebody does that to me, it drives me nuts. So I will just show you some slides. I'll go through them. They're all going to look grandiose for the league. But the purpose is really to get to the question of why is the game where it is. So the first slide just shows this is ESPN poll. Yes, the ESPN poll simply asked all Americans, what's your favorite sport? The NFL is at 26%, MLB is at 12%, college football is at 10%, NBA is at 8%. So we're now at a point where the NBA, the NHL, and the MLB can add up, and they can't get to the NFL. Okay, so you say, well, that's, I kind of thought that. The NFL is great. No, this was not the case 20 years ago, not close to the case. And so it's interesting how those numbers now sit. Let's go to the second one. On the right is really the segment that is important to me. It's the Harris Poll, most popular sport. Shows you pro football at the top. Shows you the numbers. You can't read it because it's too small, I know. I'll tell you this, because I'm going to put my glasses on and tell you, in 2011, in the Harris Poll answer to what's your favorite sport, pro football was at 36%. Okay, now that, since 85, that's a plus 12, whereas in the other direction, as baseball's gone, that's a minus 10. Okay, so that is a huge jump by the Harris Poll. So you've seen ESPN, you've seen the Harris Poll. Now we'll ask why. Well, a couple things stand out. One is the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is an unbelievable event for the NFL. The reason it's an unbelievable event is the number on the left. 159 million people watched the Super Bowl last year. Why is that a big number? It's a big number because this last week, and I think my wife counted for about 400 of these people, but I believe the number is 219 million people for 17 days total. 219 million people total watched the Olympics worldwide. That's on NBC, CNBC, NBC Sports, anything else that there's 219. In one night, 3 hours, 159 million watched the Super Bowl. So it shows you the power of the brand. It shows you the ability of the league and the network partners to leverage that, which clearly they have. So now you look at favorite spectator sport. It's an interesting thing. It's a slide. ESPN does this for the league every year, goes into every market and tests the market. You can see where the NFL is, and you can see the difference between on the left is 2010, on the right is 2011. Big change for us was obviously the NFL took an uptick in 11. And we've always been, because Atlanta is such a strong college football market, it has always been a struggle for the Falcons. I think we finally tipped it where it should be, which is we should sit, equal with them if we can. That's our object. And we've always struggled, too, with the fact that in Atlanta, you look over, and obviously we have the Braves. The Braves are the best brand, in my mind, in Major League Baseball. Nobody has won more consistently, and nobody stood for all the right things the way they do. So they've been a struggle for us to overcome. But in that market, when you ask the question of what's your favorite spectator sport, the NFL has finally gotten itself where we want to be. We go the same thing. In the Atlanta market, what's your favorite team? We struggle all the time to get over the Braves. In this one, we were over the Braves, so we may keep this slide for the next 30 years. But that just shows you that we've made a little progress. Winning helps. The brand helps. The little things like Rise Up help. All those things help, but it's also doing the right thing, and I think with Arthur, you're always going to see that. This is why I think the NFL is great. This slide, I could sit here and read this one to you because it's hard to figure out, but just realize that this shows you that the NFL is not a brand or a business based on a demographic. It's based on all demographics. And that is the beauty of the success of what this sport is. It's based on women, it's based on teens, it's based on minorities, it's based on your normal skew of the white male 25 to 54. It's based on everybody that likes the sport, and that has really driven the business. So I show you a couple things that I think are really important to us for the future. Teenagers. So simple question, all teenagers ask from the age of 12 to 17, what is your favorite sport? Answer NFL, 23%. NBA, amazingly, in that group, really is in a good place compared to what they used to be. College football is at 8%. And soccer, which I think this is a big number for soccer, to be at 8%. It shows you the inroads they've made. But it also shows you that they've still got a little ways to go when it comes to other sports. So teenagers, just shows you the teenager viewership, how many times they watch our games versus others. But let's go to women. Women ask the question, what's your favorite? NFL 23, MLB 13, and then college football 8%. That's a big move for college football in that group to get to 8%. But again, so now we've dealt with teens, we've dealt with women. Then this is a pretty interesting chart this year, which gets my eye a little bit. The red line at the top, that's women that watch the NFL and what the ratings are every week in an NFL game. And the line below that is broadcast primetime. So we finally flipped with broadcast primetime where women actually watch games more than they watch broadcast primetime. Now, I'm not sure if Housewives of Atlanta is on broadcast primetime because otherwise it might skew those ratings up. But that is women. So then you go to, this is measuring Hispanics, which is the largest growing minority population in the country. And really interesting here is where football is in relation to international soccer and MLS. Combine them both if you want, and they get to 13%. Soccer does, and the NFL sits at 18%. Critical to our success. We can never be a sport that becomes narrow in its demographic. So that is kind of all of the sports to show you where we are. Now, the last slide I like to show, I think in this one, is Atlanta and our TV market. What I always hear from people is, well, you guys do great, but you don't do close to what the Bulldogs do or what the Yellow Jackets do. So I said, let's pull out the ratings last year from the Florida-Georgia game. That was the highest rated game of the year for Georgia. And it was an 18.4 rating, which is a big old rating. Then I took our Minnesota game, which was a 1 o'clock home game. And Minnesota at that point, I believe, had won 4 games. That's a 1 o'clock home game. We had a 23.6. And then I took Georgia Tech's biggest game of the year, which was Georgia at Georgia Tech, 17.5. And then I gave you the average rating below. Now that translates into, I think each home is about 23,000. Each rating point's about 23,000 households. That converts to 2.5 people per household. So those are big old numbers watching those games. And that's a really good slide for Georgia because you'll go to plenty of places in college football where they'll never get to an 18.4, not come close. But it also shows you the power of the NFL brand in that we can draw on a Sunday at a home game. A 23.6 is a big old number for us. So that is kind of how we have looked at the rating game and looked at kind of where we are. So those are my slides, and that's kind of how I like to lead into, let's talk about why. Why is the NFL where it is? And I think this next slide will show you why Georgia is where it is, maybe. Yep, it is. This is how you create loyal fans. You take a little guy like my man Colin, who is, I guess you'd say he's my grandnephew, and then you just brainwash him at the age of 1. Does this look right to you? This is very bothersome to me. Very bothersome to me, but it works. So I won't go to Q&A yet. I'll tell you why. Let me tell you why the NFL is where it is. First of all, it all starts with revenue sharing. It all starts with a business in which we, as competitors, share revenue. And I'm going to give you the numbers. NFL, our revenue this year, gross revenue, $10 billion. We share 64% of that money equally. We get the same check that Green Bay gets, that Dallas gets, that San Diego gets, and that LA would get if they had a team, but they don't. So we share 64% of the time. Let's go to MLB. MLB's revenues this year, gross revenues, $7 billion. They share 35%. Okay, big change. Share 35% of $7 billion. Let's go to the NBA, $5 billion business. They share 36%. Big difference from our 64. NHL, you can see the problem in the NHL. There's a reason that the franchise isn't here. $3.3 billion business, pretty big business, 17.5 in revenue sharing between them equally. So you can see where if you don't get attendance and you don't drive local revenue, you're only sharing 17.5 of the big pie from everybody else, you're going to have a problem. And then MLS is a $500 million business, and they share 33%. Okay, so the NFL, the 64% is what drives our success. No ifs, ands, or buts. Best example, competitive balance. The one I like to use is Green Bay. Although I hate going there and I hate playing there, I like to use it as an example. There are 445,000 households in the Green Bay DMA in their television market. That is 69th in the country. Okay, that's 69th TV size market. So they got 445,000 people total in their television market. They have 5 divisional titles in the last 15 years. They have a Super Bowl title. They have 9 playoff appearances in the last 15 years. Okay? Now let's go to the New York Football Jets. They have 7,387,000 people in their TV market. 7,387,000 in their TV market versus 445,000. They're number 1 in TV market size. In 15 years, they've won 2 division championships, not 5. They have 0 Super Bowls, and they have 4 playoff appearances. So how is that possible? I can assure you in baseball that does not occur. I can assure you in basketball that does not occur. But revenue sharing allows for competitive balance. And I'll get into a little bit of how it happened and why we are where we are. But it goes back to George Halas. It goes back to the Mara family. It goes back to those people in the 50s that saw television coming, knew how big it was going to be, had a vision, never envisioned it to be at the revenue numbers that they are today, but knew and said, let's put all that into the center of the table and split it up equally. If they don't do that, what's the chances of a team being located in Green Bay, Wisconsin? 0%. Not 5, not 10, it's a 0% chance. And so to me, those people, the quote forefathers of the game, never get enough credit for how they set it up. Because by setting it up the way they did and putting the biggest chip in the middle of the table, I'm not sure they knew it was the biggest chip at the time. I'm not sure they didn't think tickets was the biggest chip, but they moved TV to the center of the table, split it up equally, and that is why we are where we are. Number 2, in my mind, is league think. We are a very unusual league. We have a committee system, and to me, everything in our league is based on league think. Nobody goes into a room at an owners meeting and says, well, I'm going to vote for what's in the best interest of the Atlanta Falcons, or I'm going to vote what's in the best. Everybody tends to think of, I want to vote what's in the best interest of the league. And the reason is because ultimately what that's done to our franchise values is it's taken all of the franchise values up. We don't have a spread. We don't have one team worth, $2 billion, as in the Los Angeles Dodgers case, and others worth $350 million. We don't have that. Our spread is much more narrow, and the reason to me is league think. We started a G3 stadium program that's now morphed itself into G4, and it was a stadium program where basically every time a stadium got built in this league, every single time one got built, for us Falcons, we lost big. We paid for the stadium. And we didn't get anything out of it. We got no new revenue. We paid for it. But you know what? It all worked because it helped us grow the game and grow the pie by us contributing to them. And so the system has worked very well. And I think that the revenue sharing system we have worked well. It was a system that said, hey, you guys at the top are driving so much of the cost to the bottom because of our salary cap. We're going to make you contribute to those teams at the bottom. And that system has served us well. So I think revenue sharing has had great effect. I think league think has mattered. And then I think the other thing that Commissioner Tagliabue doesn't get enough credit for when he was commissioner is the CBA in 1992. That agreement was the first of its kind where a league and its union, you wouldn't believe this today based on the lawsuits and everything else we have going, but a league and a union actually became partners in the deal. And we actually gave them a percentage of the gross. And so at that point in time, the motivation of the players was simple: grow the pie. The reason is it's their money. So it's the first time that we all kind of got in together and said, hey, the way this system's going to work is for every dollar, you're taking 50 cents and putting it in your pocket. So your object as a player is to grow the dollar. Ingenious idea, but the other thing it did for us is it allowed us to have a salary cap, and it allowed us, therefore, to keep the teams even, to not allow Green Bay to get outpaced by New York. And so I think that that system in 92 saved us and allowed the game to remain competitive. The last reason I think is scarcity of games, and it's the one that I think is extremely important to fans. And the way I like to say it is I'm going to go last year. Okay, that's just one season ago, and I'm going to ask anybody in here to raise their hand. Tell me, if you would, a game 87 for the Braves. Who did they play? Okay, you don't know. I'm shocked. And it was on July 3rd. They played Baltimore, and they lost 5-4. Okay, now is that an important game? I mean, because you would have remembered it had it been important. No, 162 games. It's impossible to say that game's important. By the same token, I looked and I got the box line for last year, and the Braves ended up one game out of the wild card. So you know what the most important game of the year was? Game 87. And yet you guys don't even know it. And so that it's very challenging for them. When they decided as a league way back when to go to 162 games, that is a real challenge for them. And that's why when you have the brands as successful as the Braves, they continue to produce incredible attendance, incredible awareness and likability and all those things. I can take you to many other baseball cities, not necessarily the case. You can go to Pittsburgh, where this year they're in the playoff race and everybody's excited. And people forgot the last 30 years wasn't real good. Since Willie Stargell and his guys did the dance and won the series, it's been a long road. And that's where that sport has struggled, is, in my opinion, it's hard to make 162 games relevant every day. And that's what they have to try to do. And it's a tough business. I think the same is true of college football. The problem that college football has is that you have schools like Louisville and others that they're willing to play on Tuesday at 3 in the afternoon if it's available on ESPN2. And accordingly, when you have that much access, you water down the product. You water down the importance of that game. And I think that has been a real challenge to them. So I think scarcity of games has helped us a lot. I think that the fact that we made it destination TV, we made it a Sunday afternoon, I don't think we can ever lose that. I think this is the first year we've had a Thursday night package all year. I'm concerned about it. I'm going to be interested to see at the end of the year if our ratings are as strong on Sundays as they have been, given the fact that we continue to put more on the air. And I think we're trying to do it in a way where we walk before we run to make sure we get that right. But I think it will be interesting to see what the effect of that is. What do I think the challenges are in the league? We have a lot of them. I think that the first and number one challenge right now is the digital age and the distribution of our content. The beauty of the distribution of our content is that you only used to have one place you could get it. One place. Sunday afternoon, CBS, watch the NFC package. NBC, watch the AFC package. That's all changed now. But you used to only have one place. Not anymore. You have a lot of places to go consume product, and that concerns us. So, when I look at these ideas of the digital age and how people are consuming their sports, it's concerning. And we have a lot of people now. We have 12% of the people watch their games on smartphones. Okay, so how do we deal with that issue in the way that we drive our revenue, which I don't want to say it this way, but it's true, really is driven through advertisers. So you have to look at smartphones. You have to look at tablets, which are at 7%. So that's 19% of our people are not watching it on TV anymore. They're watching it some other way. And that affects the way we drive our ad revenue. So that it's concerning to us as to how that's all going to play out. What's interesting is sporting events is what people are doing at the live event, is how many people are taking photos, how many people are texting the photos, how many people are tweeting, how many people are doing whatever it may do. And I think stadium-wise, it's a challenge to us to make sure that we deliver to you, the fan, the ability to do that. I mean, if we can't deliver, if you go to a stadium, and I said this the other day at an event, if you go to a stadium and Starbucks has more ability to communicate than we do, that's not right, because Starbucks not charging you anything. We are. So hopefully, and I know at the Georgia Dome this year, we will have Wi-Fi. We're going to try. It's not easy to do. Wi-Fi is not easy to do in a concrete building, and we are going to try, and we're going to see if we can't get it right for you, because as the consumer, these numbers tell us that is what you want to do. That is how you're going to communicate. That's how you're going to stay in touch, and that's what you expect when you go to a game. I went to see the Jersey Boys at the Fox maybe 2 months ago. I was a really close friend of mine gave me tickets in row 743, I think. I have never been that. I got sick. I thought there was airplanes coming. But the one cool thing was at the intermission, I sat there. My wife went to try to get some oxygen and recover, and I watched no more than 20 people around me that all had their phones out, and every single one of them was on Facebook. And I was like, hold it, it's 9:30 at night. We're watching this show that I think is going on down there, and they're on Facebook. And it was really, it's so that fractionalization, what's going to go on there is really a concern to us, and how we keep the revenue model alive and make sure we deliver the product in the quality that you expected in those with those challenges. I think the next one is the fact that we have to continue to engage the audience in live action. I am not a big believer that we have any problems with our game day product. Our game day product, if you come to it, is excellent. I'm not worried about game day versus home experience and all that. I hear a lot of that. Not my big concern. We continue to watch events like the Olympics and see what they can do. And you know what happens? That all comes into our stadiums. We figure that out. We'll do fine from the entertainment side. I am worried about the cost and about how that transfers to affordability and access. Because if we don't allow affordability and access and we become much more of an elite sport, we will have a problem. Because those numbers that I showed you and bragged about will not exist if people can't go to games and can't afford to go to games. And that is a concern of ours. And I know in our stadium discussions, that is a concern, and one that is at the forefront of Arthur's thoughts. And that we have to be one of those leaders that shows people you can do a stadium project and you can keep people in the stadium. They can have access and can attend games, because that is unquestionably the way you create the most loyal fan. This year we had a really cool deal at the owners meeting where they brought in a fan focus group into the owners meeting. So there were about 300 of us in this room, and then they had the focus group behind us. And they were not, they were not polite group. I thought they'd be a little more deferential, but they certainly came after us a little bit and said, well, we want this, we want this. And then there was a good question by the host who said, just tell me, in-home experience where the beer is $1 and you can put your feet up, or the game, what is it? And all 20 people raised their hand and said, it's not close. It's not even close. It's go to the game. That's what it's about. And so we just need to make sure you can still go to the game. You can still afford it. And that is that's a challenge of ours, I think. And then I think the last big challenge is the one you've read the most about lately, which is the health and safety concerns. And on my committee, the competition committee, we have dealt with the health and safety concerns for a long, long time. It's amazing to me that all of a sudden in the last 2 years, it's become much more of a public discussion, because it's been a private discussion for a long time. We will always evolve the game. We will always change the rules, and we will always modify those rules to make the game safer, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. We don't care about the article from the guy that played in the 70s that says, hey, they ain't as tough as I was. First of all, that ain't true. Okay, come on out. You'll play one play and you'll be done. Secondly, the game is a very tough game. And what's happened in our game is people just don't pay attention enough to history. And the game has changed dramatically. So in 1900, there's a couple really good books out about football. In 1900, President Roosevelt called him in and said, football, done. It's over. Why? It's not safe enough. People dying on the field, have to change it. What'd they do? They got rid of a thing called the flying wedge, which was an unbelievable tactic that led to mayhem on the other side of the ball. And they invented a thing called the forward pass. Unbelievable, changed the whole game, okay? And nobody brought safety up again for 50 years. But in 1950, if you go to 50 to 55 and you start going back to the Sports Illustrateds, what you find is, real crisis in football. Football is, on the decline. Mom's not letting kids play. Too many broken necks. We're having way too many broken necks. There are people that are being paralyzed playing football, real dangerous. And what did football do? Changed rules, changed equipment. And amazingly, when I started playing football, we still had the suspension helmet. Not sure who invented it, but I hope the person has left the country because that was a very dangerous helmet. We don't have that anymore. And so equipment evolved. We got better. And we have challenges again now, and I can assure you we will deal with them. Will the game look the same in 25 years as it does today? Absolutely not. Will it be a great game? You can be assured it will. And very competitive and very physical and enjoyable to watch. That's what we're charged with in the league to do, and that's what we'll deliver. I just get concerned when people say, well, the game will never be the same. Well, the game isn't the same. It's not the same today as it was in 1950. It's not the same in 1950 as it was in 1900. It's an evolving game, but it'll always be a game that'll be physical because that's the beauty of the game, and that's what you like to watch. And you like to see the skill, and our skill athletes are great, but you also like to see physicality, and that will not be an issue. So that's kind of my talk of the game, why I think the game is where it is. I'll let you ask any questions if you want. I always am going to end with a little trivia question and give away a Matt Ryan signed jersey because I want somebody to go out a winner. So we'll do that last. Don't let me forget that because sometimes I forget that, which just means that my kids get another one and they've got like 30. So.
Let me remind Rich, as you think about what 50% you want to say is truth, or
Yeah.
maybe not
Yeah.
truth. We do tape this. It is going to be on our
I got
internal site, so just remember that.
No comment. Okay.
But we do want to capture the question.
Sure.
So we have some microphones around the room, so please be patient for the microphone before you ask the question.
I don't know if you're at liberty to talk
Sure.
about this, but it's no secret the Falcons are looking to build a new stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And earlier you said I didn't know that all of the teams sharing the cost of a new stadium.
Mm-hmm.
How much would that be, and does that help your argument when you present your case? We want a new stadium. Here's what we're bringing to the table.
Right. Yes, it does. It does help our argument a little bit. It's the current program, G4, if it's called that, is a version of the prior program, and really all it is it's an enhanced loan. It's an ability of teams to waive some of the revenue they would share in and put it in to pay the loan. So it definitely makes it easier for us. It brings anywhere from $100 to $200 million to the project from the league, directly into the project. So there's no question the league participates. We participated in the Jets-Giants. We participated. I could give you the whole list of everyone we participated in, and you know what? It turned out to be a good thing. And those communities, it's easier to say to the community, hey, listen, here's who's paying for this. You got the league in, you got the team in, you got the fans in, and then you've got some type of public contribution that hopefully is done the right way. And the beauty of Atlanta is that the forefathers and the legislatures way back when created a mechanism for economic development. It was a really smart move, and that was the creation of the hotel motel tax. Take a visitor tax to drive economic development. Don't take a sales tax. Don't take a local tax where everybody goes to the grocery store and everybody pays for it, because in that instance, that's a little tough because there's a lot of people sitting there saying, well, I'm not feeling any benefit from that, and I don't know why I'm contributing to that. So I think that that's how the Georgia Dome got built. and obviously the hotel motel tax has driven a lot with respect to the Georgia World Congress Center. So that's kind of the framework. We've worked on it long and hard. The couple things on the stadium I would say is, number one, remember, we're not leaving the lease a day early. We would not, this building, if we did a deal, would be the day after our lease expired. And we're not looking for anything that was not provided for in the contract. Number two, we are going to pay a substantial amount of money for the stadium, substantial. And number three, we're going to take all the risk, 100% of the risk. Because I think we've come, and Arthur has been the leader on this, to say that public-private partnerships should not involve the public taking risk. It just shouldn't, because in the end, that risk is not going to turn out well. There are going to be unforeseen things. There are going to be things that come along, and somebody's going to have to write another check. That's not the way these deals should be done. So we've worked hard on it. The Georgia Dome has been a really good home for us. I mean, we probably heard our own case as we discuss it, because we put $50 million into the building 3 or 4 years ago. We did that because the building just wasn't in a place we wanted it. We didn't feel comfortable going to Miami Vice to play a game, and that's what we thought it looked like. And so we needed to change the look, and we needed to bring the Bulldog look to the stadium, so we did. What else?
Prior to your presentation, I would have guessed that the Falcons viewed the other NFL teams as your competitors. After it, I'm not so sure. It sounds like they're more cooperative and it's other sports. But how would you define your competitive universe?
Good question. I think Arthur uses, I think, the analogy that's the best. 364 days a year, we are absolutely partners. That day we play that team, we are absolutely enemies. And I can assure you the way that works is I go to some of these away games. Arthur and the Georgia World Congress Center are way too nice. We allow the visiting owners, when they come to our stadium, to sit on the 50-yard line and have a nice seat, and we buy them the food and they do everything. That's not necessarily the case everywhere we go. In some places, that place that's up the road in New Orleans, I don't know that we can see the field. I don't know that we know we're at the stadium, and we're sitting right in the people, and they're all screaming at us. So we're not friends on that date. But I would say that yes, we are partners every day, other than the days we play. So you can accept those out, and that partnership, it's not been for any other reason than, I think, ultimately for competitive balance. It has been to make sure that whoever our weakest link is, and in this case our smallest market, has a chance to win. Because ultimately what you don't want is to be week 2, a fan of a team, and say, we're out of it. You know, that's just not a good experience for you. And when you do that 7, 10 years in a row, guess what happens? That fan base goes to nothing. I lived in Tampa. I was practicing law. I worked for the team. I've never seen a team lose more. And the season ticket base when I started with the franchise was 22,000. So in a 74 or 5,000 seat stadium, it was ugliness. You know why? Lost for that many years in a row. And you know whose fault it was? The franchises. It sure wasn't the leagues. So that's why we are a partnership.
I grew up a Falcons fan and also a college football fan, but never really watched a game not involving the Falcons until I started playing fantasy football. Can you talk a little bit about the impact that that's had on the NFL?
Yeah, unreal fantasy football in this sense. Remember, it started as fantasy baseball. I mean, it didn't start as fantasy football. People were playing rotisserie baseball, fantasy baseball. That was the sport. Football just kind of became a Johnny-come-lately and invented their own kind of knockoff of that sport or that game. I wish I had the numbers, because I have a slide or two on that. The numbers are staggering as to the number of people that play. And the reason that that's been great for us is the teenagers and the young people and the college students, because it's easy for them to play because we only play once a week. And so they don't have to check in Tuesday night and change their pitcher. They don't have to check in Wednesday night and change their shortstop. They just come in once a week and change their team, and it has become great for us. It's not one we've put it on our. It's clearly sitting on NFL.com, and we've gotten all this thing. But one thing we've kind of said as a league, let's not try to make this a big revenue opportunity. Let's not try to make this a money grab. Let's try to make this keep growing the young base, and so that has served us well, and it has been. It's unbelievable to me that I can be in my car and I can scroll down those stations on Sirius, and there's a fantasy football station. What? Who's got that on? Hopefully nobody in this room. But it's a big old business. Good.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine now. Yeah, good.
All right. I have a background in marketing, and so the part you talk about the NFL being online,
Yep.
I'm probably one of those 12% that watch it online. The problem that I have, I think, with the NFL online, and maybe, I don't know if you have an answer for this now, but it is available internationally online in some places. It is available here on NBC only.
Mm-hmm.
But your CBS or Fox, it's not available, or ESPN, it's not available. And I would like to probably know why, because I think even when you talk about revenue, why can't they just stream the commercials that they're already?
It's a great question, and the answer is really what I probably didn't do a good job explaining the challenge. I think that the networks and the league have not figured out a solution yet where they feel comfortable that streaming it online doesn't allow for some diminution of the advertisers in some way. Do I think it's going to happen? Absolutely going to happen. But I think that that's one of the things they're working through. And that's why in the NBC deal, Sunday night, no other games are on. Okay, so there's no chance that you're going to go watch your team and not watch other teams that might be on in your market, which happens on a Sunday afternoon. All of a sudden, if you could stream it online, and we're trying to make you a Falcon fan, and you're not, and you don't have DirecTV, now you're going to stream it online and watch the Bengals. Okay, not so good for us. We're hoping you're watching us. So I think they're working through those challenges. But I think to your end, with the numbers and where the tablets are going and where the smartphones are going, the product is going to go, guaranteed. I couldn't tell you when, but I can tell you it will happen.
Without violating team integrity, can you give us a few insights about the 2012
Yeah,
Falcons?
Sure. I think we've been optimistic for a number of years. The optimism starts because I do think in Thomas and Mike at the top, we have a really solid, we kind of know who we are, we know what we're going to be, we know the kind of team we're going to be. I think this year, most people want to build the excitement around and the change around, well, you have new coordinators. Well, new coordinators, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I would say in our case, what's been really good is if you come to our training camp, you'd be very impressed with how the coordinators have incorporated our veterans into their schemes and how smooth the transition has been. I have been through a lot of transitions of coordinators, and I've been in situations where literally you've been 3, 4, 5 weeks into the season, and you just kind of go, we're not on the same page here. That will not be the situation here. And I think that where it will show up immediately will be on defense. And I think what Mike Nolan's record speaks for our new defensive coordinator is he is a really good third down coordinator. And I think our game, the NFL game, from a defensive perspective, is all about one down only. It's about third down. The other downs are nice. Third down matters the most. The object's to get off the field. And so he, I think, brings a lot to us in that regard. And I think his scheme changes and things he wants to do fit some personnel that we haven't necessarily utilized last couple of years. So I think that'll all work out for us well. I think our challenge is that the division is an unknown. I don't know what to expect out of Tampa. I do know what to expect out of New Orleans, a really good team led by a really good quarterback in a very loud stadium that I don't enjoy going to. And then the wild card is Carolina. Carolina has a guy that plays quarterback he could not make this talk. He's too big. He would go right through. He's a big old man that can throw the football, is definitely a smart guy from a football perspective and a leadership perspective, and he is very impressive. And so they're going to be a really interesting team. And I think that how they play on defense will set the tone for them. But I think that, we start with, whenever you start a season, you just start with one thing. What can you win your division? because that's what it's all about. It's not, I know everybody wants to write about, oh, you got to win a playoff game. Hey, you got to try to win the division, and that is not going to be such an easy challenge for us. And so we are definitely looking forward to the season. Knock on wood, we've had a really good training camp, a pretty healthy training camp. Last week was probably one of the saddest things I've ever seen, which is a young player that we drafted in the 5th round. That's a try-hard guy that kind of made his career at Wisconsin, got hurt on his first play as an NFL player. I never heard of such a thing. I never heard of a guy getting hurt on his first play. And it's really disheartening. And he would have, he certainly would have played a part for us, if not as, the starting fullback, certainly as a rotational fullback and a special teams player. But we've otherwise been pretty healthy, and that is important. Tonight will mean something to us. This is game 2. Game 2 and 3 mean something. I mean, you want to play better, you want to operate better, and you want some of the young guys to ascend. And so tonight will be interesting. Game 1's always the one that I just dread attending because if you lose, the article is, well, you stink, you'll never win a game. If you win, the article is, well, it's game 1, nobody cares. So there is zero upside. Game 2, a little different. You want to play better. And I think I really like where we are. I think as a fan base, if you're a fan of the Falcons, feel good about one thing, Matt Ryan. And why do I say that? Player is a good player, speaks for himself. Statistics speak for themselves. The guy's won a gazillion games. There's nobody in Falcon history even come close on a winning percentage to Matt. But better than that is he is what you want to be your quarterback. Because in football, we can sit here and say, well, the coach is the CEO of the team. And in my opinion, he is. That's what coaches are. Maybe that's because I grew up the son of a coach, but that's what I've always thought they are. But when you identify with our team, you start with the quarterback. That's the person you identify with. And Matt is such a good person, such a good leader, and such a good player that we're just, we're blessed to have him. And I think that's a pretty good place to start every year.
All right, let's do one more question, then we're going to have to break.
I hate to go back to a business-related
Sure.
question after that pep talk,
Sure.
but I was curious, what impact has the advent of DirecTV and the ability to watch every game in every market had on the league and its popularity?
Yeah, very interesting question. I think there were some of us that I was in Tampa at the time DirecTV came out, and they said they were going to have this package, and I know that there were some of us that said this could be a problem, for us. I mean, we're trying to build a fan base off of 22,000, and they're distributing games into our market from all these other teams. There is no question that DirecTV has been a grand slam for the NFL. It has not had any of the negative effects we thought, and it has created a deeper fan base in areas that aren't even close to teams. That's what it's done more than anything. Because what used to happen is if you were in some remote part of Missouri, not close to where the Rams are or the Chiefs, and you went to see, all you saw were Rams games, or when they moved to St. Louis before that, Cardinals games. That's it. That's all you saw. That's the only game you saw. And you know what? Franchise wasn't doing great. You weren't very close to it. You weren't a big NFL fan. Today, you see them all. You go home, you watch them all. You know what? You start picking the teams you like. You start following those teams you like, and those teams are winning. You get a little more engaged. So to us, I think what we were able to do with DirecTV is we were able to hit a home run for the country more than the areas that had teams. We didn't have to make fans in those areas. We do need to make fans in those areas where there aren't teams, and I think that's what DirecTV did. So we're thrilled with it. The red zone is a problem for us because the red zone for people like me, that when we have an off week becomes addictive. I get a headache. I get nauseated. I'm flipping back and forth. I'm watching the red zone is a concern to me. As a football fanatic, it can wear you out because I will sit down at 1 o'clock, turn the red zone on, and at 7:15, my wife will get me off the sofa, put me to bed, and say, "You're done." And so I'm concerned about that. But DirecTV for us has been great.
What about your trivia question? You wanna do
God,
that?
very good that you remembered it. Okay, so here's how trivia goes. Okay, pretty simple question. We're not allowed to cheat. Okay, there's no cheating allowed. I am going to decide who gets to answer the question. You are not going to yell it out, and you're going to raise your hand. And if you get it wrong, you're out. Okay, you just have to walk out. So you can't guess. No guessing. Okay, so here's a simple question. So it really is a pretty simple question because I think this kind of shows you where we are. Last year, the University of Georgia had how many people drafted in the NFL draft? Yes, sir. 8. You have to leave. Who's next? Yes, sir. You're going to leave him. Next. Go ahead, ma'am. Come on. The University of Georgia is a good football team now. You're not giving enough credit to the Bulldogs. Go ahead, ma'am.
12.
11. 6.
God bless.
10.
Go ahead. Go ahead. What are you going to say? 15 would be a lot. 7 is correct. God, there we go. Now we're talking. Man. My Lord. There you go. There you go. It's all yours.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, that's all I've got. Thanks very much.
All right. Let's give it a hand. Rich, before you sit down, I want to give you the highly coveted Terry Third Thursday globe that we had done by a local artist. I suspect it matches the color scheme in your office.
It's close.
Certainly
Yes,
in
it
the
is.
complex.
Yes, it does.
But thank you
Thank
again.
you.
We appreciate
Happy
the
to do it.
time and the energy and the information. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.